Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking your time today to join us on a second webinar we're having. We're doing multiple webinars once a week to talk about different features and services that are available in the Constellix platform. And we're going to start off today by doing a quick poll of asking, are any users currently using the Constellix services? Are you no, yes, soon, maybe? We're just curious to know the type of users that are on the webinar. We see them are now, more and more users are coming in. So this gives us a couple more time to get our feedback from our users. And what we do, if you've attended our webinars before, we kind of tailor them to exactly what you ask us for. So if you need information from us at all at any point during the webinar, feel free to submit a question to us. And we will answer those questions as we go through the webinar as fast as possible. If we cannot answer them in the webinar, I will make sure that we answer them as fast as we can after. So once again, thank you for taking your time. I know you're all busy, and this is going to be hopefully informative to you and as we go through the whole entire process and the different features and services we have. My name is Stephen Job. I'm the founder and president of Constellix. I founded and started DNS Made Easy now 15, 16 years ago. So to those of you that I've talked to on the phone or through meetings or conversations or conventions, it's nice to see you and hear and to see you part of the webinar today. To those of you I have never spoke to before, feel free to reach out to me. You can always ask me any questions or any thoughts or problems you have. As I tell everybody, there is not a complaint or an issue or a problem that has not been presented to me over DNS Made Easy over the past 15 years. If anyone submits a complaint, it always makes it to my table where I get to answer it and give feedback and give thoughts on it. So feel free to reach out to me if you use any of the DNS Made Easy or Constellix or any of the Tiggy services, and I'd be more than happy to assist you. So today we're going to do a quick little recap on GeoDNS, and the reason why is because last week's webinar we had some questions about that, and we had questions regarding how it could be used in the different type of configurations that could be done in there. So instead of spending a lot of time on this, I'm going to do a little presentation. As I mentioned last week, I'm building together a blog article to talk about the different sort of GeoDNS services you can do within Constellix. We showed how to configure them last week, and you can view last week's webinar online on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to give a little recap today on that. I'm not going to get too much into the configurations of it, but what I'm going to do is give you a little broad overview of what you can do with those services. And then if anyone has any additional feedback or says, I need these additional features as well, can we do this? And then let me know, and then I will put it into the interface. That's what we'll be doing to build Constellix all the way from the beginning. We've taken the feedback of our users and we have developed them into the Constellix platform. So let me switch to a screen here. So if you're looking right now, I want to quickly go over how a DNS lookup process looks like. And I want to make sure everyone can see the screen. So just as long as everyone knows, if you go to learndns.com, we have a great little video that explains it. But how a DNS process looks, you have your web browser or your client, your computer, your MacBook Pro, your desktop, your Windows computer. It's always talking to what's called a resolving name server. And then the resolving name server goes through the internet as depicted as a cloud. And then it eventually hits one of our authoritative name servers. Over here I'm mentioning Constellix. It's funny how it's a cloud. My 8-year-old goes to me and said, does all the internet go over satellite? That's why they call it a cloud. And I said, well, no, in reality, most of the internet runs underground, so there should be a pile of dirt. But we all show a cloud to depict the internet. And so the process goes, the resolving name server through the internet hits one of our authoritative name servers, and we send that resolution back to your resolving name server, which goes back to your client. And that's sort of important to understand that process, because when you're talking about GeoDNS, you're really going to want to figure out which are the actual, where's the query coming from? What are you making your decision on? And so what I want to do now is explain to you the GeoDNS process here, and I gotta keep changing my screen. So right here, you can see that a lot of the decisions in GeoI, so we in Constellix, we have in our GeoDNS products we talked about last week, we have the global traffic director, which is exactly the same as DNS Made Easy. And then we have our Geoip services. And Geoip services comprise of the IP filters and the GeoProximity. And when you're doing decisions based upon the Geoip, remember we're making that decision based upon the querying client. So in this case, the IP address of the browser goes to the resolver, and the resolver then talks to the authoritative name server. If the resolving name server does not support what's called EDNS client subnet, so no EDNS client subnet, and then the decision that we're seeing is going to be based upon the IP of the resolving name server, right? So over here, if we said if the web client was 10.0.0.1 and the resolver was 10.100, if we don't get the EDNS client subnet, then the decision that we're making on our services is going to be based on the resolving name server. So you can see, so we're making our decision based upon the resolving name server's IP address, right? And that's a little bit different than when we actually have the EDNS client subnet. So if the resolving name server supports EDNS client subnet, we're going to make that decision based upon the actual browse, the IP of the person asking for that website or web page. So that's pretty important to understand where we're getting that from. Most of the lookups out there today do not support EDNS client subnet, but there has been a big push to do that. Constellix does support EDNS client subnet. So if we do get that IP address or the IP subnet from the resolving name server, IPv4 or IPv6, we're going to make our decisions and our GeoIP services totally based upon the IP of the actual client making the request. And so you can get a lot more fine-grained control over where your queries are going. And so a couple of the configurations, and I'm going to put these all in a blog, as I mentioned last week, at the same time. So some of the configurations you can do is you can say, okay, queries from the United States resolve to this IP, queries from Europe resolve to this IP, and anything from North Korea just drop, right? And so you configure we did these configurations last week, and we're going to do a configuration again in a future webinar. But you can make specific queries like this just using a GeoIP filter to make those decisions. You can also go a little more fine-grained in our configurations. And you can make decisions based upon networks, based upon ASNs, and based upon regions. So we said, okay, if it's coming from this network, resolve to this IP. If it's coming from this ASN, autonomous system network, resolve to this IP, and if it's coming from these individual regions, resolve to these IPs, and if it's coming from another region, just drop it. And this could be from another region, another subnet, etc. So this kind of goes how fine-grained you can do just within the IP filters. Within our IP services as well, we have the IP proximity. So you can say, I have a web server in LA, I have another web server in New York City. All the web clients that are closer to New York, I want to respond with this, I want to send them here. Anyone closer to LA, respond here. So this uses the IP of the querying client. Once again, this is the IP of either the resolving name server or the actual web client itself. It bases that IP on the geolocation, decides which server they should go to. So that's a very simplified GeoProximity. We showed this last week. And once again, I said we might do another webinar in the future, but we're definitely going to put up a lot of presentations about this. You can do a little more fine-grained control as well. So you can actually do a combination of IP proximities and filters. You can say anyone closer, go here to New York. Anyone closer to LA, go to the LA facility. But if you're in Washington State, send them to a separate web server, right? You have something you want to just send to those particular people. And anyone coming from North Korea or China, drop those queries. So you can set up a security firewall at the same time. So that's a combination of the GeoIP proximity and also the GeoIP IP filters, which we allow you to do inside Constellix. And just like DNS Made Easy, if the users are on DNS Made Easy, you're really familiar with how our global traffic director works. With the global traffic director, we allow you to actually configure separate zones in different regions. So we allow you to configure all of our name servers in particular regions of the world to have different zone configurations. And that's how DNS Made Easy has always done its global traffic distribution. And it works really well. It's probably the most accurate way of doing any sort of GeoDNS service. But it doesn't give you that fine-grained control you do with the Geoip that we just showed. So GTD gives you a good global thing. If you only had a European POP and United States POP, GTD is the best way of doing that. It gives you a really accurate way of doing it. But if you want a little more fine-grained control, you can then also combine GTD with Geoip. So as you can see here, and this is the last picture I'm going to go through, is that you can actually say, okay, within the version in North America East, right? This is where I want to say, anyone closer to New York, go to New York. Anyone closer from Florida, go to Florida. And also, if you're coming from this IP range, drop those queries, right? And this also allows you to fix problems that you might have from a GeoIP service that's not Constellix, right? So a lot of the other competitors out there, if you're doing just based upon an IP address of the querying client, you could potentially be allocated to the wrong IP. For instance, a European IP address is showing up in the United States because they recently moved the network. So what we allow you to do is you can say, okay, if anyone's coming from a European IP address within the North America East or the East Coast name servers, don't send them to Europe, send them to my server within New York. So we allow you to fix a lot of the problems that other GeoDNS providers are unable to fix based upon our global traffic director's combination with GeoIP. The global traffic director is purely powered by our network, and it's our ability of our network of answering authoritative name servers as close as possible to the client. And this is the reason why Constellix is, month after month, and DNS Made Easy, month after month, the fastest authoritative name server in the world, because we do that the best. We make sure people on the East Coast of the United States are hitting our name servers on the United States. They're not leaking over to the West Coast, and you're staying as close as possible. And that's why our GTD product works so well. So by combining GTD with GeoIP, it gives you all that fine-grained control you can have. Okay, so that's a quick overview. I'm going to show these configurations. They were shown last week on our webinar. We're going to have another session coming up, and we're going to have a good blog article going over these exact configurations that we just showed right now. But real quickly, I want to do a little poll. I want to know what the overall thoughts of the GeoDNS services are, and it's everything that you need. All right, perfect. So I appreciate your response. Awesome. So it doesn't look like we need anything else. Last week when we did this poll, I didn't explain all the different fine-grained granularity we can do. And a few users commented they needed a little more fine-grained control. And like I'm saying, we have a lot more. We can get into details here, but that would be a full 3-hour presentation. And I want to just go through some of the basics of what Constellix can do for you during these webinars instead of going through, monotonous configuration things. And we're going to provide these help and tutorials online for you. Okay. Okay. So the question was how granular is the GeoProximity in miles and kilometers? And what I will do with that is let me actually just log in to a GeoIP service over here. And I'm going to show this. Let me share my screen here. All right. Everybody should be seeing my screen here, so I'm just going to log in. Okay. So when you do your configurations for your GeoProximities, I'm going to go in here. You can actually specify longitude, latitude, all the way down to, I believe, what's that, minutes. I apologize. It's been a long time since I took geography. you can get right down to that fine-grained control. So you can, with our tool, we allow you to have a bunch of predefined regions that you want to. But honestly, if that region doesn't work for you, you want to come up with your own, you just override it and put your own longitude and latitude in here, and you can call this whatever you want, facility 1, facility 2, and you can give complete fine-grained control. You don't have to use what we have in our system. We're allowing you to pick exactly what you want. So that's how GeoProximity works. And once again, we're doing it based upon the IP of the querying client, which is the web browser itself or the resolving name server, and then also the the querying client itself, or it's going to be the resolving name server's IP address. That's what we're basing the decision on for GeoProximity. And you can do this within the GTD region to give you a real accurate results that, as we tested, the most accurate in the industry. All right, great question, and thank you. So the next thing I want to talk about is pools. Pools was a huge piece, and a couple providers have now copied what we call pools. They say the best way of flattery is the copy. So the way that Constellix does pools, though, is phenomenal, and the type of services and features it provides is something that I want to focus on. Last week's webinar, I mentioned it really quickly, and I actually had a failed attempt of configuring something really fast. We had less than 5 minutes. I'm going to spend a little more time talking about it today and giving some feedback and showing you how it works. So let me go back into showing my screen. All right. So you can see right here, this is the pool I set up from last week. Actually, I'm actually going to delete this, and I'm going to start it all over again. And we can start with a brand new demo. And to do this, I want to actually do, I want to show the integration that we currently have with, I want to show the integration we have with Sonar. So I'm going to log into our Sonar control panel at the same time and bring up a list of different systems. And then at the same point, I'm going to set up another screen here. I'm setting up some resources. I'm just going to log into a couple boxes where I can quickly turn on and off. So I apologize. I'm going to set this up so we can fly through this demo. So I think we're good to go. Okay. So as you can see, this is our Sonar dashboard. We spent a good time last week talking about Sonar. Once again, if you'd like to have a demonstration of Sonar, feel free to let us know. Either myself or someone on my staff will be more than happy to walk you through it. You can also look at the webinar from last week to see more details about it. We talked about all the different features of the real-time live snapshots of your traffic, showing exactly where your queries are coming from, and giving you all that sort of information. So I have 3 systems here, and once again from last week, I have these 3 systems set up with DigitalOcean. I created 3 quick droplets, and I'm going to create this in a pool. And what a pool allows you to do, it allows you to do things that start going outside of the normal DNS RFCs for round-robin DNS. And what it, let me just add these 3 different IPs in here, because I was going to set it up from the beginning. I know a lot of times when you do a webinar, if everything's already predefined and already set up, people think that it took hours and hours to configure it, and trust me, that's not what I want you to believe. So I want to set up things really fast. And so I took these 3 individual systems, I just typed them in. Now I could enter up to 256 different IPs here. And you can list all these different IPs, and then you can have all this range of how you want them to be returned to the user. So right now I have 3 IPs, obviously. So if I say the number to return is going to be 3, that's how many IPs, if I query the Constellix name servers, that it's gonna return back to. I'm gonna say min available to, and I'll explain what this is in a minute. So I'm gonna say save, and I have a quick little formatting problem, which I'm gonna have to have our developers fix real quickly. That's a small little issue. So I created my demo pool. And now within your domains, once you create your pool, you can assign them to a record. So I'm just going to create a quick record, and I'm going to call it pool. And I'm going to assign it to my demo pool. And once again, this could be a whole list. It could be a cloud instance. All this can be set up through an API service. So it's automatically, when you spin up a cloud instance, it adds its IP to the pool for you automatically. You can put notes down here, as we showed last week. All these information and everything over here is searchable to do bulk modifications, etc. So I'm just going to save this. I now staged my change into my record. And all I'm going to do now, I'm just setting up my SSH window. And I'm going to do now, I'm going to click here to apply the change. It's going to show me exactly what changed. This is the record that's added, and it gives me to my the demo pools is going to be used. I'm going to commit that change. I can put a note in there. I can search on it at a later time. And now that change is live. So if I go now and look at my, my terminal, and let me take a look at my records, those are my, and if I query pool.rprt.us, and if I query one of my Constellix name servers, you're going to see it's returning all three of those IPs. Okay, so I said I want 3 IPs to be returned. So let me go back to my, hold on, it's going a little slow on me. So I'm going to go back into my pool, and I just want to show you what the changes to those options were. So if I go to report.us, I'm sorry, if I go back to my A record pools, pools can be configured for A, quad A, or C name. If I go back into my demo pool and I say, you know what, I only want 1 IP to be returned. I don't want all 3 to be returned. I don't want to show 1 at a time. And this is really important, really more specifically, if you have 256 systems, you can't return 256 records, right? It won't fit in a normal UDP packet. It's going to have to use extended GeoDNS. And it's not going to comply. It's not going to fit through some corporate firewalls. So you only want to return up to 13 at a time. You probably only want to return 3 or 4, right, for those large cloud instances you might have out there. So I'm going to say the number to return is 1. I'm going to save it. Because a pool is something that can affect multiple domains, we allow you to stage your changes. So you're going to click here to change it. I'm going to do commit the change and roll it out. So right now, any domains that we're using that pool are automatically going to be updated at the same time. So if I go back to my terminal, and if I query it, you're going to see I'm now just getting the 1 IP. But as you can see right now, that 1 IP is pretty much equally distributed, right? The IP is going to be just filtered between it's going to show me return 1 IP at a time, but they're all equal weight. So if I go back to my pool configuration, I'm going to start shutting down some of these windows over here. If I go back to my pool configuration, and if I wanted 1 IP to be returned more often than others, let's say I wanted this 159 address to be returned more often than others, I just do that amount of weight. So I could do 100 here, or for here I'm going to do 70. So this is going to be returned 7 times more than the 162 or 37 address. So I'm going to say save. And obviously you could do something like this if you were rolling out a change. If you had 5 different instances of your application and you only wanted 20% of your users to touch it at first, and you want more and more and larger percent of your users to get on that, you can scale it this way, and you can make updates to the pool and move the weight around. So I'm going to commit this change, save it. Once again, any domain, any record, any template that uses this pool is being updated all throughout the Constellix network. Over 1,000 name servers around the world. We now go into a querying, and if I start querying it, you're going to see 159 is being returned. 159, 159, 159, 159, 159. It's definitely being hit more often than the other ones. And so it does it by the weights and stuff like that, by how often people are querying it, and automatically calculates it for you. So now we're hitting the stage where we're going to hit 159 a lot. We're doing 7 times more than the other ones. And I'm going to keep going through, and you're going to see there it is, 37, so it starts popping through. So that's how you can do unequal weight round robining within Constellix. You can modify your result set, how many are returned at one time, and you can do your different weights within the pool. So the next thing I want to show you, and this is the part of the demo where I failed miserably last week, is in the pool, you can integrate it with Sonar, right? So Sonar is our monitoring service, as we talked about. And once you have an IP or an FQDN in here, if you're Constellix, everything's integrated. So you then choose, okay, I want it to be monitored with this Sonar check. So you choose how you want it to be monitored. So I'm going to say, okay, each one of these is going to have its own monitoring set up, and I want to save this. And so it's now fully functional. And I'm going to apply here and commit this change. Now, it's important to note one thing I mentioned here. So I marked this down before, and I said the min available needs to be 2, right? So 2 need to be available in order for me to consider this pool to be functional. If any less than 2 is available, I'm considering this pool down. So let's say, for instance, if I did equal weights, right? And I should probably do that just so it'd be easier in the demo. And if I was splitting the traffic across all the different pools or all the different servers in the pool, then if I had 2 of them, I'm fine. But once I'm down to one server, I consider that whole site down, what we call a site failover. And that's where you control how fast you want your whole pool to fail over. So I'm saying if this min available needs to be 2, if we fall less than 2, I'm considering this pool down. So now I'm going to have a secondary pool here. And I think I had this created. Yeah, and we just had a bunch of random IPs, and we're going to return all 3, and the min available needs to be 3. So now if I go into my domain for reports, and I got to make sure I show all my records. There's my pool. And I'm going to say, okay, if this pool is not functional, show me my second pool. Okay, and you can say this is my current active pool. And I wish I spelled second correctly, but I apologize. And this is my secondary pool. And obviously, just like everything else, you have your TTL, and you put notes in here. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to push this live now across all of our name servers real quickly. All right, so that's live. So now we have our pool, and the current pool, as you can see over here, is demo pool. So I'm now going to go into my droplets, and I'm going to show everyone what I'm doing, so it's not voodoo magic. I'm going to go in here and do service, nginx, stop. So I'm stopping the first one. And now if I go back to my Constellix, you can see here in Sonar, it automatically shows it as being down, right? If I go into my pools, and if I was to look at it, you're going to show that it's being down. So we're automatically considering this down. The policy over here is to follow Sonar, and I'll explain this policy in 1 minute, but the following down. So if I now query my systems, and the one I shut down, just to make sure we're all on the same page. The one I shut down is the 159 address. So if I go into my iTerm, and go to my bash, and if I query it, I do not want to see the 159, and I'm not. I'm seeing the 162, and I am seeing the 37, right? So it's split between the 2 of them, 50-50, because they're both with equal weight. So the next thing I want to do now is showing how the whole pool will fail over. So I'm going to go to my second instance here, and I'm going to do service nginx stop. So I'm now killing that service. Let me go back to my Sonar control panel, and every 30 seconds, there it is. It's now detected that it's down. And once again, it's not just detected, it confirms it's down. I can click on the little snapshot over here and show, like right now, look, there it is. It's down from these 2. and the other ones haven't reported it down yet. But it's checking it very quickly. You can always see the a live view of what everyone else is seeing by clicking on that. So now what I want to do is I want to go into DNS, and I'm going to look and see what did it do when the two of them were down. So if I go to my domains and then go to my report.us, you can see I'm now on the second pool, because I said 2 of these IPs need to be there for me to consider this pool up. If not, I'm considering the whole site down. Everything needs to be failed over. And so now we're going to the second pool. So, and if you guys have a terminal session or a command line, you can feel free to do this live when I'm doing it. So now if I query pool, you can see I'm now getting the second pool coming in, 8.8.8.8, 8.8.4.4, 10.10.10.1, and I'm automatically seeing the secondary pool hit there because 2 of my 3 services were down. As soon as I go and I bring up let's say I bring up the first one, right? And so now this change is going to be made. You can see it wasn't detected yet. There it is. So it detected and automatically updated the name servers, and now it's rotating between the 159 address and it's rotating between the 37 address. And it was just quicker to stay on that. I apologize, I know I went out of order, but our services kind of work pretty quickly. And so now if I was to look at my pool again, you can see I'm back at my primary pool, and if I looked at the actual pool configuration, record pools, and if I was to view the pool, you can see that the second one's down, the first 2 are up. But because my minimum available was reached, I'm now using the primary pool again, and everything's live. So that's a full explanation of, and you can see in Sonar, the second IP is down, and if I was to bring that one back up, it would show back up. So that's really the big overview I wanted to show everybody with pools and the power of pools. In the next month and a half to 2 months, we're going to be having extra features in pools for IDO, for internet traffic optimization, which are some great features. I know I've shown several of you on this webinar already about those features and explained to you how they're going to work. It's really leading the industry and getting you the proper performance and a lot of people need for their clients. So that kind of goes through our full pool agenda that I wanted to talk about. So let's give you a quick overview. If you have any questions on pools, feel free to let us know. The next thing I want to talk about real quickly are the A-name records. So A-name records are the ability for us to put in a CNAME in a spot where DNS RFCs don't allow you to. So putting a CNAME at the root record, putting a CNAME on a record where you also need a TXT record for, putting a CNAME on a record where you also need an MX record for. CNAMEs need to be unique. So what we did in DNS Made Easy is we created the A-name record. It's an A record combined by a CNAME record, and we called it A-name. We're the first ones in the industry to do it, and we copied that now into Constellix. And I want to show you real quickly about how Constellix differs from DNS Made Easy with that. So let me go into my domain. And we'll switch back to my screen over here. And let me just, I'm going to try to keep it clean for everybody. I'll delete this. I should have done this. Never mind. I don't need to do that. So we're going to create a couple of records over here. So we're going to do one for, I'm going to call it google.report.us. I'm going to point it to www.google.com. And you can actually do multiple FQDNs. And then I'm going to do another one called Amazon. And I'm going to do www.amazon. All right. So you can see I have my staged environment. I have 2 A names being created. I'm deleting my pool record that I did earlier. I'm now going to commit these changes and push them through. So what an A name record does is, the biggest thing is I now have this record Amazon. I can also create this Amazon record as a TXT record, as an MX record, and use it, in other ways where I couldn't if it was a CNAME record. And if I go to my the third-party tool I tend to use a lot in demos, instead of using Sonar, if I go to www now, google.com, and I do a look all around the world, I can see, okay, Google has different IPs based upon different regions. Some of them have one IP, some of them have multiple IPs. And if I was to do that now on google.rprt.us, right, you're going to see the exact same thing. So when we queried it, we got supple, sometimes you get a round robin, sometimes you get one IP. It just depends, what you are querying at the time. So we will do an individual lookup for you based on every single region that we have systems and wherever we get access, and we will automatically find out what it resolves to, and then we present that as an A record back to the user. Really powerful. It's a great feature. It's a big change from DNS Made Easy, where we only would constantly monitor the IP. Whenever the IP changed, we do a dynamic update. In Constellix, these A name records are done in real time. And you can see it, you sometimes get different ones. And the biggest thing in Constellix too is the support for the quad A record. So we will automatically also do the quad A record lookup. You can tell there's a different network over here, 803, 809, 811. We'll do the quad A at the same time. So if you ask for a quad A, we're going to give you the quad A address. So this works great if you have a CDN that uses IPv4 and IPv6. And likewise, if I did my Amazon one, rprt.us, and if I look for all my A records for Amazon, you're going to see, I got different 48.57. This one's 24.46. You have different IPs, different networks everywhere. And the same thing works with IPv6, but it's all black. And the reason why it's not working was because Amazon doesn't have, I don't believe, unless Amazon does not actually work over IPv6. No, they do not. Okay, so that's the reason. So if your FQDN did not have IPv6 support, we also will not return the IPv6. We're not going to error out. We're going to give the exact same response that they would provide themselves. So it's automatic IPv4, IPv6 detection. It's a big upgrade over the DNS Made Easy implementation of it, partly because we wrote our own name servers for Constellix. And so this gives you a lot of those great features that we didn't have in DNS Made Easy, that we took a lot of the user feedback and we put in here. So if you got any thoughts on this or ideas on the A name records, let us know. I have a quick poll right now to let me know if you like it, if you think it's good, if you have further needs, let me know. Okay, so one question real quickly is about a sonar check. I'm going to show this to you as soon as we're done with the poll. All right, perfect. You have further needs. All right, still have one user who has further needs on A name records. Hit me up, please. Either reach out to me on LinkedIn or send feedback through the webinar, and we will, if you have any further needs on A names, let us know, and we can do that. You can't see my screen? No? No? Can you guys see my screen? A little quick feedback over here. Yes or no? Shoot me a message. You can see it? All right. Yeah. All right. So one person said no. One person said yes. A couple more said yes. Oh, I'm just gonna make sure. I want to make sure everyone can see this. Next stop. All right. I stopped everything and restarted it, so we're good. So within Sonar, it's a little bit off our topic, but I don't mind answering at all. You can configure what you want to check on. So the real basics is the name, post, port. The name, the host. You can put FQDN or an IP address in there, what port you want to monitor, and they also have optional parameters. This is a basic TCP check, which is rather simple. But if you're going to do an HTTP check, let's look at one of those. Where near the advanced, you can actually choose what you want the expected status code to be. And we can put as many different status codes as you want in here. We're actually going to have a feature that actually you can just override and put whatever you want. So if sometimes people say they want to make sure it's a 403 and they want to check on a 403, you can do that. So we're going to be adding additional error codes here as well, but right now we have 200, 201, 204, 206, 301, 302, and then we can add the additional ones as needed. And a couple other questions. So does a name go with third parties? So a name's currently just for the secondary DNS provider. I was going to mention this at a later point. We're currently not updating the secondary DNS providers as often as we want. We're going to be adding that feature in the very near timeline. I don't know if you can say near future. Is it? Is it near future? Okay, I'll go with near future. Does Sonar run the same test as DNS Made Easy? The answer to that is no. Sonar is a completely redone network. So DNS Made Easy monitoring is something that actually I wrote 16 years ago. And I wrote it as a quick way to monitor web servers and monitor TCP/IP, monitor UDP, DNS. I wrote it, and I just wrote something that really scales pretty large. It doesn't do a lot of detailed logging or data analytics that we can store and show to users. It wasn't built for that. It was just built for failover. Throughout the years, we needed to start monitoring. When I launched DNS Made Easy, DNS Made Easy, of course, only was running on a very few locations, and it didn't have nearly the sort of infrastructure that we have today. And so what I needed to do is when we started putting, when I first started, it was 4 name servers, and then I did IP Anycast, and I had 1 name server in multiple cities, which is still what most of our competitors have today. But then as we started getting DDoS attacks, okay, we need 10 name servers, we need 20, okay, 40, 100, 150. Some of our POPs have 200 name servers in them. And so what I needed to do was to monitor all these name servers almost immediately, right? So you got 1,000 name servers out there. If one name server is being problems because a disk goes bad and now the I/O is bad, or there's the SSDs are the wear life is getting bad, and we all of a sudden are having bad I/O performance on it, and bad I/O performance is causing the delayed updates, and delayed updates is causing bad query. I needed a tool to monitor thousands and thousands of systems in real time. I went to all the different third parties out there, and they were too expensive. It was insane, right? It was cheaper to actually to host the server than it was to pay for another company to monitor it. And if you looked at enterprise monitoring out there, I'm sure all you guys can agree with me. And so I then went back to, at the time, we now had developers in the company. We said we have to develop our own monitoring service. That's what Sonar is. Sonar is the same service that we use to make sure that we stay #1 in speeds. It monitors thousands of our name servers in real time. It's constantly reaching out to them and doing everything. And with that, we get all our analytics and performance. That's what we then put out to be called made it live, and we called Sonar. So Sonar monitoring is different than the DNS Made Easy monitoring, and it should be much more, gives you a lot more feedback and performance and everything. So, and is there any other questions? Okay, third parties. All right, so we're doing good. So I now want to go into to talk about third-party imports, secondary DNS integrations, API, and billing. So currently, Constellix is, as we mentioned last week and this week, I mentioned a couple of times, Constellix is a non-RFC based DNS service. We don't comply to normal RFCs, right? So we can't do a normal secondary DNS transfer, and we can't do a normal, AXFR, IXFR that we can, because we're doing real, crazy stuff with pools and GeoIP and filters and proximity. And none of this stuff is part of the DNS RFCs that were written in the early 80s. So what we have started to do in Constellix is we started to integrate and allow you to do secondary providers that are other cloud providers out there that also might have similar features. In choosing which providers to use, we have to choose a provider that's cost effective for our customers. We don't want to be charging a customer, a certain fee and recommending you integrate with another provider that's 1,000 times the price, with a complicated sales and organization and everything like that. Anyone knows about DNS Made Easy or Constellix, we have no salespeople. We still don't to this point. And so we don't want to recommend people to integrate with a cloud provider that's extremely expensive. So we pick the cloud providers that we thought would be reasonably priced and they have good performance overall in the industry. So we're integrating with currently right now Amazon Route 53, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud DNS. And so if you go into your portals of DNS, and I'm going to bring those up. I'm going to share my screen over here. All right. So if you go to your configuration, you go to third-party import, you get to this screen where you can choose which providers you want, and then you can import domains if you wanted to import the domains into Constellix. And the reason why you might want to do this is because you can then, once you import the domain in Constellix, you can have that provider be your secondary your secondary provider at the same time. So I'm going to go through this real quickly, and I got to change my API key now because I'm sure someone over there just saw that and is going to try to use it. But that's besides the point. And so it allows you to automatically import records from certain providers. And I can say, okay, I want to import from this provider into my system, and it brings down all the records, and it tells you how the records are going to be imported, and it brings them all in. And there it is. So now I have the new domain, and I imported it from a Route 53. And if I looked at Route 53, I should have realized I didn't really have any records. Nothing much in there except for the root record. But it allows you to import those records, and we pick those providers, and you can bring that stuff in. And the real powerful part about the integration we have with those providers is allowing you to actually do a secondary provider with them, right? So normally these providers, they're going to say we do not support, we don't have secondary DNS. But if you're looking for a cost-effective solution that scales well, it's a cloud DNS provider. You don't want to have any. No one should really use one DNS provider anymore. Even though historically DNS Made Easy and Constellix has the highest uptime over the last 15 years. But if you wanted another provider, we do allow that, and it's really easy. The same way you enter in your API keys, you put into the system, and then you go to your advanced DNS. And you say, okay, secondary DNS provider, and you choose which provider you want. You can choose all three, right? I'm just going to choose one right now, just for informational reasons. So I'm going to click apply. As you can see right here in my Route 53, I'm going to go back to my hosted zones. I only have a couple of domains in there. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to apply my report.us in here. And what it's automatically going to do is it goes out to Google. It goes out to Amazon. It creates my domain, and it says, okay, Amazon, what are my name servers? And it adds them in as the third-party NS records. So if I go up to Route 53, and if I do a refresh, there's my domain, and I now see it in there, and I got all my different records. Okay, I have my root records. I have my this is my Yahoo record. You can see it created it. I have a HTTP redirection. On our HTTP redirection inside of Constellix works over IPv4 and IPv6. So if I go down here and if I look at my redirection record, there it is. And so that's what we're seeing there. And we're seeing my different records, and here's my failover record. And failover and everything completely works on Amazon. It works with all of our third-party third-party providers as well. So if I go back and we do our little demo again, and so currently, where did my Sonar go? I lost it. I'm still logged in. I am. All right, and then I'm going to go back here real quickly. Let me turn back up my second one, and I'm going to turn down my primary one, my primary droplet. And so let me go back to so I stopped the first and I brought down the second. Let's speed this thing up a little bit over here. Let me make sure I think my droplet is, I gotta kill Nginx 1 second. All right, so I dropped the second one, and I'm trying to drop the primary one. That droplet is, can't kill Nginx for some reason. That's the problem. So what I want to do is show you so right now it's currently going to 159, 203, 178, 171, and okay, I can show you a different way. So I could bring up and down the my secondary one, my Nginx. It's not even the server's up. I just can't kill Nginx. So instead of wasting time on that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the IP over here. We're going to say, okay, currently it's going to 159. I'm going to make the 37 one the primary IP. And so what I want to do is I'm going to bring this one up to the primary IP because that one's currently up. Actually, it's saying the second one's down right now. So it's just not. I'm trying to figure out why I'm not getting. Oh, there it is. They're all down now. So it actually did stop finally. And then now what I have is, if you look at my failover record, it should be going to 37, 139, 27, 68. Let me actually bring this back down to the, I want to bring this back down to the right IP. So I want to show the full failover in action for everybody. Right? And so if I go into my Route 53, you can see my failover record was 159. And if I do a refresh of it, you're going to see it's the 37 address. If I go back into my here, and if I start the process back up, and I got to get back to my window. You can see it's now back up. If I go to Constellix DNS, you're going to see now it's on 159. If I go to Route 53, you're going to see now that it's 159 again. So you're going to see that with the integration between the secondary providers and that of Constellix is really tight right now. It works really well for our failover records. It works really good for basic DNS configurations. The A-name records, based upon how fast they change, that's the one last piece that we're trying to figure out how often we want to do this, because we can't send an update every second when an IP changes, because then we're gonna like max out your API calls you have with these secondary providers. So we're gonna be putting in an option. I've talked to one client in particular that recommended this and said he was looking into this feature. So we're going to put in an option that says how often you want us to pull the record, and then we change that record for you at the secondary provider based upon how often you want us to. In Constellix, all of it's done in real time. Once these secondary DNS providers, these cloud DNS providers support A-name records, other than like I think Amazon only does it at the root record level, then we're going to also just configure it for you automatically. So to give you that sort of configuration. Okay, we have a couple minutes to go, and then we're going to do questions. So one thing I want to talk about real quickly is the API. Everything I'm doing over here is configured through the API. All this can be managed and done for you. We have, I'm going to bring up an API documentation to go through. If you open up a support ticket, we will provide you, and we're going to put this up on our support forum. We are going through it and modifying it as fast as possible. And any users that have submitted requests for us for features, we're trying to add them as fast as possible. We allow you to make all these calls through the API. We also allow you to make atomic calls. So we allow you to make a create and a get at the exact same, a delete and then a create. So if you want to delete a CNAME and add an A record, we allow you to do that as well. We also allow you to do complex operations to make, calls and make many calls at the same time. So we allow for you to do full bulk updates and update the details on all the records at once. And this is the reason we have some clients that have, we have one client that has over 10,000 records. If they're modifying the TTL, they don't need to make 10,000 API calls. We don't want that burden, and they don't need to make that many calls when they can just do it in one call. So we're providing all these extra tools out there that allow you to make bulk modifications and bulk search replace within your records and make these changes for you. What I recommend if anyone needs API access, give it a try. It comes with all of our Constellix DNS services, and let us know what features you think you need. And if you're a current user of ours, you know that we listen to you very, very, very tunely, and we want to make those changes. We want the services to work for you. Constellix is, once again, just the features and requests of our DNS Made Easy users for 15 years. So it does give you the full ability to manage all your pools, your templates, your vanity name server configurations, your domains, your records, everything within the Constellix. You can with the Constellix interface. You can also do it with our API at the same time. The one last feature I want to talk about real quickly is our billing. Some people have asked questions about that so far, and so I'm going to quickly go in here. And I'm going to log in here and kind of show you what the billing interface is all about and what it kind of shows you. When you first log in, it's going to tell you the type of support plan you might be on. We have different support packages that are shown inside DNS Made Easy. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. That are shown within inside Constellix. So you can choose what type of support plan you want your company to have. We have the free one, which is just free business hour ticketing support. We have the standard one, which is like $25 a month. That gives you a faster response time, escalated support. Then you start going from here up, you start getting phone support options and how fast the response times are going to be, dedicated account managers and stuff like that. Currently, right now, anyone at the gold level also gets a dedicated account manager. Someone's going to help you with migrations and help you moving forward. But we have the different support packaging plans. You would purchase the support that you want associated with your account right on the billing interface itself. But within the main home interface, it allows you to view what your current usage is and what you can preview what your current monthly bill is going to be. So this will actually pull in real time the number of queries and everything that you have in your account. It pulls down and talks about which services you have. I have a geo filter and a standard and what I'm being queried on, the queries and how much it's calculated. And it also gives you the cost of all your Sonar checks and how often I'm checking and how often I need to check and everything like that. So obviously I'm checking, from 30, 40 locations every 30 seconds. So my Sonar bill is going to be a little bit more. pricing in the industry, Constellix is, once again, we always try to do everything much cheaper than the competition to give you the much better quality of service. So this gives you a complete breakdown of everything you have on how we calculate it. Everything's based on a unit thing, and because the units are really cheap, we then compute and tell you what the actual computational charge is going to be. When you're a Constellix user, there's items that automatically get billed cheaper as you go forward. So if you look at the DNS pricing, for instance, the first domain has a certain price. Domains are then go to 50 cents. Then you have domains above that are less than 10 cents a month, right? And it gets cheaper and cheaper. And same thing with records, and everything scales. The more you use, the cheaper it gets. But that just gives you a base cost of your stuff. As you're a bulk user, though, we also give you a discounts in the number of units. So by default, we have a pricing scheme that the cost per unit gets cheaper and cheaper as you reach higher limits. And everything's explained to you in our FAQ and our billing FAQ, and it talks about the pricing. So, but when you look at your billing, once you hit a certain level, the cost per unit actually gets cheaper. I think the first cutoff's $1,000. So once you hit $1,000 a month, it automatically gets cheaper, and your cost per unit gets cheaper. And then we give bigger discounts again. It gets cheaper and cheaper because we actually believe that we should give the same discounts that we expect from our vendors. When we purchase bandwidth, when I buy a 1 gig port, I expect to pay this price. When I buy a 10 gig port, I expect to pay this price. And when I buy it from, 16, 17 pops, multiple 10 gig ports, I expect to pay a certain price. And so I believe that same philosophy when we offer services to our users. So you don't have to ask for it. We'll automatically give it to you. We automatically scale our pricing. Everything in Constellix, just like DNS made easy, everyone's priced and billed it the exact same way. And it automatically is calculated for you. So if you have not logged into the billing interface, feel free. If you've had DNS made easy services that you've converted over to Constellix, the credits should automatically be applied to your account. And you should have that credit in your Constellix account, and you should be using off that credit. And if you have any questions or problems with your invoices, feel free. You can always look at your historical invoices, and this shows you, when those invoices were, when they were paid, and you can always bring up an historical invoice and show exactly what it was and how it was computed. By default, there's different credit tiers within Constellix. So once you hit, if you're a brand new user, once you hit about $100 of usage, it's going to automatically charge your credit card. If you need to be invoiced, net 30, net 60, something of that nature, you let us know and we will modify your account for you. And we can also take you off credit card billing and send you an actual invoice where you can make payment through wire or bank transfer, ACH, or through check. So those are everything in the billing interface. And everyone should have access to it. Once again, this is all managed through our management interface, which I talked about last week. But if you have any more questions, feel free to let us know. I think we have one more. So I have a quick thoughts of the third-party secondary DNS provider and thoughts. What does everyone think of it? Is it a good start? Are we making good progress? It allows you to get good, redundant, fast-performing DNS services at a reasonable price. You don't need to pay the other what I always consider the the overpriced, underperforming DNS services out there in the world and pay their higher fees. So we're allowing you to integrate with cost-effective solutions that are still going to give you the same performance. I'm going to start going through some of these questions real quickly. So we answer the pricing question. All the pricing for DNS Media Service can be found online. Asked about a DNS POP in South America. It'd be beneficial for website owners. It would be beneficial for website owners. The cost of us to go into a POP, because we don't go into a POP with only 4 or 5 name servers like some of our competitors do, we go in with a lot of infrastructure. So our normal POP expansion is roughly 450,000 American dollars to start. And going into certain POPs, you have to pay certain import and duties like that. Once our user base in a region is big enough to warrant the cost, we expand into that POP. So we do plan on going into South America soon. It's just based upon the price beneficial analysis of our users. If we're only going for instance, to put a pop in Spain, if we're only generating $1,000 or $2,000 a month of users in Spain, it doesn't make sense to put $400,000 of infrastructure there. The same thing would go for a place like South America. Completely agree with you. It's just got to be based upon our pricing model. We don't charge outrageous fees for our services, so we go what makes sense. We're the largest privately owned DNS network in the world. We have no VC money or anything like that, so we kind of grow based upon our user demands. Once we get enough demands in there, we'll be in there, I guarantee you. Can you import secondary zones from DNS Made Easy? Great question. And the answer is no. We only will import right now the managed DNS domains from DNS Made Easy. So if you have DNS Made Easy, you can import your managed DNS domains. We don't import from secondary domains, but open a ticket with DNS Made Easy. We can copy your domain from secondary to the managed, and then you can go from managed to Constellix for that. So our DNS Made Easy staff would be more than happy to do that conversion for you. Other questions. Can you have vanity name servers with third parties too, like in DNS Made Easy? Yes, you can. Some secondary providers allow this and some do not. So we, of course, in Constellix allow for vanity name servers, and it gives you the ability to set that up. Some providers allow you to rebrand their name servers and some providers don't. Microsoft Azure at this time does not. So you can't change their name servers. I believe Amazon does though, right? So you can actually change it and you can set it up with the vanity, and it would overwrite the name servers on there as well. Now you're going to be responsible for setting up all their name servers IPs to the correct IP addresses, right? You have to do that at your registrar anyway, and you're going to need to set up all those different records. But some of these providers do allow that. DNS Made Easy was the first provider in the industry to support what's called vanity DNS. Constellix, of course, supports it, and more providers have been adding that feature as we go through. Yeah, I think I did stop and start the same one. I agree. Thank you. I'm just going through. Are there any plans for a billing API? I would like to be able to obtain usage of DNS records, etc. Yeah. So if you watched our webinar last week, let me quickly. I think we're still on the screen. If I go to the report, so if you look at our advanced query tools, you can get there both different ways. Go to advanced query, and I can bring up you can tell, I think you guys must be hitting, this is last week's demo. I could tell everyone was hitting it. And now this week's demo, I'm getting a good amount of traffic as well. And you can tell it's all done in real time. And I can view the real-time stats for the domain. And it shows exactly, from where, so in Ashburn, I'm getting most amount of the queries. It shows you from where I'm getting my queries. Let me go from the 17th to the 18th. And you can, all this information will be available through the API very soon. So you can pull down your actual detailed record reporting through the DNS console. The billing API will also be available. So you will be able to pull down your usage, and you can preview, and you can actually pull it down and set warnings and do anything you want that. That's not available yet, but that will be pushed out there soon. And month-end prediction to possibly see what the balance is based on current settings. Ooh, that's a great one. I do appreciate that. And so the one user here recommended that we show you the expected usage based upon the current usage in the month. And the only thing I can think about that, we got to figure out, if you started mid-month, we got to look at how many days of usage and average and say, okay, you didn't start for the first 15 days, so your day 16 is this cost. We can't average it across 16. We got to average it over the one day. Or maybe we just take that current day's usage and we extrapolate it out over the rest of the month. I got to figure out a couple of things about that, but that's a great idea. Saying, okay, based upon today's usage, probably I'll say your expected cost to the rest of the month will be this. I think that's a great idea. We do not have that yet, and I think we should add that, and so we will. I thank you for the feedback. You want to know what the cutover for costs are. Yeah, we're going to build a pricing calculator. Let us know, open a support ticket and say, generally this is how much it's going to be. We're going to do some basic packaging. DNS made Constellix overall, it's going to be a little more if you have very few domains than can DNS made easy. DNS made easy have these package based memberships, because it's a win-lose on some of those memberships, right? We have users that have the business membership at 25 domains, they use all 25 of them, and we have the guy that uses one domain. So it's really, you win on some, you lose on the other. And Constellix, everything you pay for your usage. So if you only had 25 domains, I guarantee you DNS means you'll still be cheaper. But with Constellix, you do get the ability to have a lot more of these features. As we talked about last week, you get the domain versioning, you get the domain, the full history, and everything like that. So if I go back into my domain, and if I looked at the different history and stuff like that, you can see, what changes I made from version to version. I can roll back, I can make any changes, all these great features. They cost a little more because we're storing more data, and that's the reason why we charge a little more for per domain in Constellix to give you these features. All right, I'm just going through some of these tickets over here. The poll for billing was all right, and that's everything. So I think we went through most of the thing. If our polls were a little quick, feel free to submit. Can I redo it or not? No, I can't redo it. So if the poll was quick, the last one was, what do you think about the billing? Let me know your thoughts in the feedback. We're going to do a survey after the webinar. Feel free to give me any thoughts, any suggestions you want to see. We can do another webinar next week. We constantly keep doing them and keep pushing them out and letting our users, know what features we have. And as we go forward and as we keep adding new features, I love showing them to all the users and seeing how they help. This sort of feedback that we get from all you guys is kind of how we grow our products here. We're completely engineering team. We're all development. And we all work on a product, and we're all proud of it. So let us know what features you need, because that's the stuff we're going to be building. Once again, my name is Stephen Job. And if you want to reach out to me, let me go back to this last slide over here. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. If you've talked to me before, you'll realize, I listen to you, I take your feedback, and we make changes based on that. So let me know how I can help. I'm excited to show you the new Constellix features we've been working on. And if you need anything from me, feel free to let me know. Thank you all once again for taking your time. You guys all have a wonderful afternoon.